Well, years ago they said I disappeared. Well, I never really went anywhere. I kept on racing after crashing my car. Went through a lot of schooling to try to understand the fundamentals and all the dynamics and what it takes to build an engine to get a better understanding, they said. So that's what I did. Therefore, I kept on racing. And here we are. Now I'm doing videos. How can it be better than this? I enjoy it. Thanks for tuning into my channel, guys. Please subscribe, like, and share. Hello, this is Ben. Thank you for tuning into my channel. And today we'll talk about what I have done years ago that started something that today got really big. At that particular time, nobody even thought of the plenum, where the throttle body sits on the top of the intake manifold. Nobody took that thing for seriously for power or to find any kind of hidden horsepower. And I ended up doing the first Plenum or modified Plenum ever marketed, and I had a run for about a year, almost 2 years, until manufacturers like AccuFab, TFS, Edelbrock, all those other guys jumped in and followed basically what I started. And all during that time, the 4.6 has already been, this is 2003, so I think the first 4.6s happened to show up, what, in late 90s, and they were really down on power. And it's kind of sad because the 4.6 came out and Chevys were running around with the LS engines, which was excellent compared to the 4.6, until this Coyote showed up. Now there's a whole different take. But anyway, the 4.6 2Vs were kind of anemic, and I got to give you that. Ford, that wasn't one of Ford's great years. And at that particular time, I tested these things. And, well, actually, first time I saw one, a guy came up at the shop and he replaced his stock, I think, what, 61 or 62 throttle body, what they came with. And he switched it over to a 70. Actually, is a Mac 70mm throttle body. And when he pulled it out, took out the 4 bolts, the linkage, and pulled it out, and I took a glance at it, and I looked at it and go, huh, that looks bad. The whole design on the floor, because once you have enough experience, and the flow beds can tell you so much repeatedly, certain things you got to pay attention with on any given intake port or exhaust port for the matter. And later on you start to look at the shape and you get a pretty good idea when it's done correctly. And when I glanced through that guy's, I think it was a 99 4.6 Mustang, and I look at, that doesn't seem to be bad. Anyway, so I kind of like put on back of my head, that was like 1999 or something like that. And so many years went by, and I ended up, of course, I was working for LAPD at that particular time, and I had a good buddy who was in the bomb squad. And I said, hey, just like we have somebody on the motorcycle side, Kinsey, oh my God, what was his last name? He was Hawaiian, Japanese Hawaiian, and he had a bunch of motorcycle officers running those Kawasaki's, and when him and I were not doing it, I'd port the heads and put it on, and we had one guy we called Rocket Locket, and his heads were ported on his Kawasaki 900. Was it 900 or 1100? Anyway, it's not long ago. He had a fast bike, and a lot of the other guys got the drift, and Kinsey and I would do certain things to his bikes just for the hell of it. And These guys would bring us donuts, coffee, whatever during break time because they like us to soup up their bikes. So we're all playing around with this thing. Anyway, I had a buddy on the bomb squad, and I used to work with a lot of these guys. You know, we'd go to the desert out there by Ventura and blow things up, and all these little things. But we have to drain the oil and the gasoline, and they would go in there and they blow it up. Man, it was crazy. But that's one of the projects I've done besides working with SID on this bloody crime scene stuff, going there and taking the cars to the lab, and we work with several guys there. But anyway, I took the Plenum off and I looked at it and I go, okay, this looks exactly like the 5.0 with the same bad kink on the design. So I did it. It was a weekend, and Monday I came back and I put it on, and it was one of those long holidays, Labor Day weekend or July 4th. Anyway, I put it on, fired it up. Okay, look, no codes, no nothing. Well, it sounded good. Drove it. I go, okay, I'm not familiar with this car, but it seemed like it had a lot more pep, a lot more acceleration. Anyway, so he comes and picks up his car, and I go, did you do it? I go, yeah. Let me know what you feel. Anyway, he got up and dropped me some donuts. That was funny. And then he went about his way. And he left, not even 10 minutes. He comes back with a big thing, a big smile. Hey, Benny, this thing runs, man. I love it. I go, really? He goes, yeah. Thanks a lot, man. He goes, you want some lunch? I said, sure, why not? Anyway, so he went about. Fast forward a couple of days later, or was it weeks, I have my close friend Joe Rendo, who's now a federal officer. He had a 99, or was it a 2000? And I said, hey Joe, come by the shop, man. I want to do something to your car. Anyway, so he brings this red Mustang, and I took the throttle body. There's a lip there. I cleaned it up, and then again I look at the Plenum, and I took the side, widened it was square, okay, with a real bad floor design. So I flattened it out and kicked off the sides. I said, Joe, okay, let's put this on. And I know you and I are friends, man. You've raced with me for many years. I won't be disappointed. Let me know if this thing really works. Okay? And I said, sure, no problem. So he put it on, and he jumps in, and boom, he's gone. About 20 minutes. And I go, okay, I wonder what happened to him. I wonder if the sucker broke down. 20 minutes later, he pulls up to the parking lot. It was a weekend, I remember that. And as soon as he pulls up, he comes out of the car with this big smile. And he goes, I said, what? He goes, that thing works. Oh man, it's got a lot more response. I go, really? He goes, yeah. So I go, okay. So it must, I go, hey, tell me if it works or not. I won't be disappointed or whatever, I won't be mad. He said, no, Ben, it works. So anyway, here comes Ray Choi, another one of my buddy, is also a federal officer now. Anyway, those guys weren't hired by the feds then at that time. So they're always hanging around my shop. Joe is a Mustang freak, and Ray Choi, he loves tinkering with stuff. He's been like my sidekick at my shop in nearby Glendale. Anyway, he brings one of his friends over, and we do the same thing. I modified the Plenum, touch a little thing on the throttle body. I said, go out there and run it. Anyway, the guy left up on the Glendale freeway, comes back, same thing, big doggone smile. Man, that thing works. I wonder, I go, okay. And we're going, okay, so this possibly works. All right, so anyway, here it comes. At that time, Bob McClurg was very well known in all the magazine circles, one of the best writers out there, hot rod topics and everything. And Bob calls me up, "Hey Benny, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, here I'm working on some 4.6 stuff." "Oh, 4.6? You got something for it?" I said, "Yeah, I got a modified Plenum and a throttle body that seemed to be promising." "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, come by and want to check it out." So anyway, he comes by, looks at it, and he goes, "That little cut right there made a big difference?" I go, "Yeah, makes a big difference." "He did put it on the flow beds?" I go, "Yes, I did." I go, you know, and the stock one I flowed without it being touched, it flowed 466 CFM. You know, for a 281 cubic inches, that is hardly any CFM for the matter. So 466 for 281 cubic inches. And then when I put on a throttle body from Mac, I was a Mac dealer at that time, and it went up to 486 CFM. A gain of what, 20 CFM just by swapping the throttle body. So I did that. So I go stock throttle, stock Plenum with a 70mm throttle body. What, it went up to 486 CFM. Oh, pretty good. Now, when I took my stock Plenum and I did my work on it, it came up to 518 CFM plus 52 CFM. That's a big jump. Now, when I added the 70mm throttle body on top of my modified Plenum, it came out to 530 CFM, 64 CFM more than what the factory comes with. And I was thinking, okay, 530 CFM, 281 cubic inches, like I said on a previous video, 281, basically you double that number, and there's your CFM requirements or close to that. And then when guys add their headers, their flow masters, the flow master was the biggest thing back then, X-pipe, H-pipe, cold air induction, you know, or maybe a camshaft, then it'll go higher than that. So anyway, when you have 530 CFM, that's pretty doggone good. That's an increase. But anyway, so Bob goes, in fact, if I remember, he was there when I did another one, and the guy was so impressed with what happened, and Bob goes, "Let's take it to the dyno." And guess what? We took it to Morgan Motorsports, which was one of the hottest Z28 Camaro shops out there in the valley. We kind of figured, hey, we'll take it to a Chevy shop because they'll try to shoot us down, and so that we don't get any additional power from this Fords. What better thing but to take it to the competitor's shop, because if you know, it don't work out, hey, they're the ones to prove it. But if it works out, then we know we got something going real good. Anyway, so we took it to Morgan Motorsports, and there we are on this article that I've shown here right now, through the pages, and we ended up with what, 10 horsepower, about close to 15 foot-pounds of torque at the flywheel. So there we are. This is what we have. And the guys was like, wow. And then just to confirm it, out of Joe Rendo's car, we took and put the stock throttle body again in the stock Plenum, and boom, back to the same number. So it wasn't a fluke. It was a true, honest number. And remember, at this point in time, the engine started to heat soak. And June, you know, it started to get warm. So we didn't cool down the engine after 1 hour, 2 hours, then do another pull. We didn't play that game. We wanted to do a quick change around and pull again, so you have more realistic, everyday type situation. This is the magazine, published in June of 2003. And this was the start of the Plenum being an industry product started by Bob McClurg and I. And here it is. Stoke Power 2-valve intake secrets. For the longest of time, the Plenum was never considered a speed part or anything that has anything to do with power. This magazine article started it all, so here we are, and we'll continue on. Here's the top page of the article from Mustang and Fast Fords. It was titled Small Wonder, and it details what I was able to do and start an industry product that is now called an elbow. I don't know why they called that. It should have been called a plenum box or throttle body box or manifold box. That would have been a more appropriate term. Okay, how to port your stock 4.62 V intake box and pick up 10 horsepower, 14 foot-pounds of torque. At that particular time, this was not even considered a speed part. This is the second page on the article, and I will scan down and explain the details so that you guys would see what I have done right here. Here's a closer look at the Plenum and what kind of changes I did to have yielded 10 horsepower more at the back wheel, which probably equates more on a flywheel by a significant amount, not really a minor increase. If you look at the stock Plenum right here, you notice the rounded corners there. And then when you look at this modified by me, I bowed this out a bit on both sides, and then I flattened the floor. When I did that, and that's where you see the improvements on the flow bench. And I have one company in Texas. Boy, they were 4.6 people. And when this magazine article came out, they were very, very vocal on the internet and said, my thing doesn't work and theirs does. And the amazing part was they posted a picture of their Plenum. All they did was polish it. They did not correct this very, very bad angle. Not at all. And what they basically did was polish the runners. That's all. It didn't make no difference. Because if you just polish it, and I've done it just to showcase what I really found when I did this, polishing it doesn't do anything. Because this isn't really that rough. Anyway, over here you can see the edge, just like here, but this from the bottom. And then look how much flatter that is. That's all. It's nothing major. It's quiet, simple modification. And it's amazing how some people miss that altogether through the years. Here's Joe Rendo's car on the Dyno shop. And you can read through, if you stop this video, you can read through all the explanation. And there it is. The Plenum from a Crown Vic on that side, which is actually taller. And Ray Choi right there installing it before we did the dyno test. We basically installed the part, and Morgan Motorsport did all the dyno testing. We had nothing to do with that. Here's a picture of the dyno sheet. 10 horsepower, 14.9 foot-pounds of torque to the back wheel, which is quite significant. I wonder what that would be at the flywheel, but that's quite a jump, considering I'm using a factory part, a factory intake part, and I could have patented this thing, but I couldn't quite make it at that particular time. So I had to buy a bunch of those from the factory and go from there and produce them. I had to run for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years, should I say. Here's the end of the article. Joe's 4.6 Mustang there in the picture. And Morgan Motorsports, I don't think they exist anymore. or they may be under a different name right here. Okay, but this started a big hoopla on the internet and everything else, and I'll explain. I'll try to explain. So after the dyno session, we went back to the shop, started taking photos of the parts and stuff. Bob was really excited that he's gonna make this to an article for the Ford magazines and stuff, and he was really pumped up. And he said, you know, nobody makes Plenums for as a speed part. It's a bolt-on speed part. You know, the first one. I go, yeah, you're right. Nobody does. But anyway, when the magazine came out in 2003, June, boy, I was not ready for this thing. I started getting calls. Could you make me one of these? Or could you make, could I try this out? And I was confident with what I've found. So anyway, I started getting a bunch of orders over email, whatever. I was getting 3 to 5 a day. It went on for almost 2 years. And I told my girlfriend at that time, I said, we can enjoy this thing because nobody provides this product or anything close to it, and we can have a run for it until the manufacturers catches up with us and they can make this by the hundreds. And I'm doing, you know, 3 to 5 a day, okay? And I was mailing them out to UPS and FedEx. Man, I was like, everything growing out of my ears. My eyes started to bug out. I go, oh God, but hey, the money was good. So it kept going, and then here is the problem. Of course, there's many shops out there because they got blindsided by my contraption or my what I found. They can't quite stomach it because a lot of people are going, well, you guys been building 4.6 since 98 or whatever. 99, you guys didn't find this? And a Windsor guy / Chevy guy, Ben Almeida, found this, and you guys been doing this for a long time? So the negativity started, and guys that would order from me with perhaps a little apprehension or doubt, but anyway, they can afford $159 I charge for each and every one. Anyway, so here it goes. The ones that bought it put it on, and they go, man, this thing helps. And then I would get a repeat order from their friends. So, hey, I'm a friend of so-and-so. You tried this stuff? Man, I want one for mine, and so forth. So it piled up. And I sold lots of it. In perhaps close to 1,000 or maybe more. For about a year and a half, I kept going with that thing. Anyway, so there's one particular shop in Texas. Big 4.6 guys. They even posted out there on the internet. It's crazy. Oh, we invited Ben Almeida to bring us Plenum against our Plenum, and his shit don't work. I go, I know my stuff works. Theirs don't, because, you know, guys that are sharp would see that on this article, how the edges are changed. And then all they did was polish it. I knew right there they didn't understand airflow or don't have the vaguest idea. Now, they said, oh, we invited him, he didn't show up, so why would I go all the way up to Texas to bring my thing so they can dyno it? You come to me. Anyway, so the internet was abuzz, and a lot of people were defending me, a lot were not. And usually the ones that were not never even tried the product. I was really to the point where eventually I said, look, I know that a lot of you guys doubt this product that I've created, but if you don't believe it, time will prove me right or wrong. Because if this contraption, my kind of like you know, pissed off language, if this contraption does not work, a lot of companies will not copy what I started. That's the telling. If others follow me and create their own plenum, or elbow as some call, because I coined the word plenum, then nothing would have happened with this thing. It would die out. But guess what? I knew it was not going to die out, because I got orders, and when I look at the address and I look at these big companies, intake manifold people, it's their address, but without their name. That is from TrickFlow. This is AccuFab. This is BBK. That's some unknown offshore company. And Edelbrock. They're just some of the ones that are being made out there. And one company called me up, "Hey Ben, what? We got one of your stuff here." "Yes, we did get the same 10 horsepower that you said it would. How did you find this out?" I go, "All along." Anyway, so I knew the industry was gearing up to follow me up on this thing, but I had, like I said, I had a run for a long time. And soon enough, well, how should I say this? Because the 4.6 was new from the Windsor world, people are looking for anything. And of course, a lot of people embrace what you have, and a lot of people will say no because they got beat to it. So here we are. I get a call from the magazine president or CEO. Okay, I don't want to mention his name here, but he was the main guy there. And at that time he lived in New York. He said, "Ben, could you provide me one of these? Because there's so much, you know, debate about your product, if it works or not. Could you just send me one so I can find this out myself?" "Sure, give me your address and follow what I've done and you will see." He goes, "Thank you, expecting it ASAP." So I did one right there and then. I shipped it to him, and he tested it, and he's the main guy for this magazine. He messaged me, he says, "Yep, I got 10 horsepower. Same thing with foot-pounds of torque." You know, he goes, "This thing works. I don't know what the hoopla is." I said, "Because there's a lot of naysayers, and I tell you the truth, a lot of 4.6 shops at this particular time, because it's a new engine, people are finding out ways to make power. They got blindsided by me." So, fast forward, PRI, I'm walking around with my name tag, and I walk by this intake manifold manufacturer, and I'm looking around the Ford section, the GM section, and I was hanging around the Ford section because I saw they have a Plenum there. And I was looking at it, and the guy, the factory rep, says, "This is our new product." I said, "Yeah, interesting." And he goes, "Have you tried? You should try this. Do you do Fords?" I said, "Yeah, in fact, I do Fords." You know, we made, you know, about 11 or 12 horsepower, so forth and so on. You go, "Oh, interesting." And then he goes, "Well, you know, could I get your card, your business card, so we could probably ship you some of these things, or if you have a jobber or you know, an arrangement with us, so we can provide you our products." I said, "Sure." So I gave my name, and when I gave him, and he looked at it, he said, "Bill," I mean, he goes, "Oh gosh." I said, "Oh man," he goes, "I'm sorry. You're the one that started this." Here I am telling you about this. "Sorry, guy." I said, "No problem. That's fine." You know, he goes, "How did you come about with this thing?" I said, "Well, I knew it all along." So I walk around PRI. It's huge. It's a huge show, performance racing industry. And every manifold guy that I went to, it has a Plenum. And as soon as they see my name, they kind of like, some got quiet. But the guy from the major manifold, you know, at least he said, "Hey, you know, thank you," whatever, you know. But the other ones, they're like, okay, but. So I walked through the SVO Ford display, and one of the SVO guys well known, I don't want to say his name because I'm not at liberty to give his name. He says, "Hey Ben, how'd you find this?" I said, "I saw that even back then in 98 or 99, I saw there was a defect. Holy cow, this is, we could have made, you know, I think, what was our horsepower rating? 260 for the 4.6? I said, you could have added, what, 15 horsepower on top of that? 275 horse now? It doesn't sound as anemic." 4. But anyway, he goes, yeah. He goes, maybe we could cast these new ones, you know, following your pattern. I said, sure, go ahead. I mean, it's your product, it's your part. I merely modified it. I have no issue with the patent. I can claim patent pending on it because, look, I didn't invent the part, you guys did. All I did is modify it. So he goes, "Man, it's amazing how you found this out. We would have not even considered that." He goes, "I'm going to talk to the factory to come up with similar to what you did." He goes, "We have a bunch of this, thousands of these things, ready to go to the factory. If I can just requisition Ford to CNC port and change that angle there on the where it dives on the floor, and I will, you know, we'll re-rate this 4.6 275 or something like that, or 278, or maybe we'll call it 271, like the old 271 289. I said, "Sure, go ahead." He goes, so he got my name and info and everything. He goes, I'll tell you how it came about. Fast forward, a couple of weeks later, he emails me, and I said, "Ben, they shut us down." I go, "Why?" "It would have been great to up the level of 4.6 and give it a little bit more spunk, you know, and sell more cars, but it added horsepower, even though it's a manifold change from what I devised." He said, "You know the crazy part, Ben?" He says, "We have touched of these things, and the bean counter shut me down, because if I would ask for a CNC port, because we cannot recast or throw away all these other ones that are already there on the shelf to be put on the assembly line. But I asked that we take each and every one to CNC it and then put it back on the shelf and put it on the new cars and re-rate them at 271 or 270. The bean counter shut me down. If they can save a penny for a million part, that's $1 million they save." Okay, now I see that is what's going on. But anyway, at this point in time, so it didn't happen. They still came with a 260 horse, if I'm not mistaken, instead of making it 271 or 275, like the 271 horse 289. That would have been great. Anyway, so I saw many manufacturers copy what I've started, but one, I can tell, wasn't thinking very well, because this factory plenum is deep. So when you put the plenum on top, it goes down and has a very long short side. And what they did with theirs was they put it on the flow bench and they put a twist to it, like a little kick before it went down. That is the wrong way to go. You made the runners too long. It shouldn't be. Okay, because it already has a short side. But on the flow bench, I made an adapter to mimic that short side that the manifold has. And I couldn't put the whole manifold on my flow bench, too big. So I just looked at the plenum and made a copy of an adapter to make it look like the plenum is sitting on the manifold. And that's how I evaluated this thing. But they had a little kick and put a short side to it, which made the runners even longer. And they said it made more power. I doubt it. Okay? Because now they have a kick. And that went on, and now the naysayers are quiet because there's, I mean, a bunch of guys doing plenum, followed my initial example and copied it and made their own. Fast forward, I did some more for the 4.6 and the 5.4 trucks. They're a different kind of plenum. But here's where it's interesting. When I did that cut, again, I have friends with trucks. I said, try it out, come by, let me do that, and put it on. And they were more than glad to do the wrenching themselves because they're getting something for free. And I told them, look, it's just an experiment. I'd like you guys to tell me how it goes. On the 5.4, I think I put epoxy on the side because it's too expensive to weld it and kick it out. And everybody to a T said the same thing. Ben, it had responded. The low end torque and mid-range is so much stronger. I go, okay. Like my usual thing, I look at the port and evaluate it. I test it. Then when I'm happy, I put on the flow bench. I will not use the flow bench to dictate to me which way to go, because the flow bench will always tell me, make it big so it flows more. Make it bigger, it flows more. That's not the way to approach these things. Like they say, raise the track, not the flow bench. Raise the rat track, not the dyno. So here we go. I've done several, and I put on the bench after I'm happy with. In fact, I went to an off-road truck show out there in Pomona and showed these things. When I put it on the flow bench, guess what the ratings were? 0, nothing. It didn't give me any airflow dividends whatsoever, not even 1 or 2 CFM. I started scratching my head. So I talked to some SVO engineers. I said, this is what happened. And they go, you know what might have transcribed here with what you did? You probably stabilized the inlet flow coming in to the manifold instead of having it turbulent, okay, with a lot of what they call vortices inside the manifold, where you have little separation, little tornado things, you know, little corners there that has a lot of rotational flow, so forth and so on. Okay, you probably stabilize it with your flow bench, with your modification. You didn't gain any more airflow because the throttle body dictated that. And they were correct. The throttle body dictated that. But what actually happened was the plenum, the floor, the sensitive part of the floor, the port, where I widened it. In fact, on that other one, I think the Triton 5.4, I put a little epoxy. What it did was, it probably gave a more even distribution on the manifold. And that's where they felt the big response, the low end and mid-range response. Perhaps top end was there as well. That opened my eyes. It's not about what you see on the bench, but what are the issues, the dynamical issues inside the manifold that you've changed by changing the inlet. Just like adding a special underneath the carburetor or the throttle body, where you kind of stabilize the discharge there. You know, not quite as turbulent. You're adding plenum, it kind of deadens the signal. It's not really creating such a tornado underneath the plenum or the manifold or the carburetor. What you've done is basically stabilize the flow coming in, or straighten them out. They're more laminar instead of having all these vortices and all this crazy stuff going on. So that's perhaps what happened there. I wish I had the budget to hook a 5.4 or 4.6 truck engine and put, you know, EGTs all around the thing to compare the stock plenum and one that's modified by me. You can probably see a difference there and how it's distributed. Maybe lean on certain parts, the end ones or maybe the middle ones. Maybe I'll help that situation there. It's such a experience for me, and just like Joe Sherman created the 383 small block Chevy, and Art Carr, who's a good friend of mine, that has been the namesake for racing transmission back then, and he told me, Ben, I started doing headers, and then somehow I did a transmission, it picked up, and I've been doing transmission back then. I'm not even known as a header guy, but I was a header guy first and foremost, before I became a trans guy. And me, Ben Almeida, started this thing, the Plenum, and at least I left my mark here, or I did make an impression and made a difference in our sport to have come up with something as simple as this that works.